So how did eMarketer Selena come to this conclusion?
So eMarketer has a methodology that's a little bit different from Snapchat's, and their comparisons are different as well. So eMarketer is looking at monthly active users, and Snapchat typically reports its daily active user base. Now what eMarketer is saying is that based on their projections, user growth in the US will slow for the first time this year. They're also predicting that user growth is going to flatline over the next several years up until 2023. Now Snapchat disputes this and points to their own data, which shows that daily active users are not supposed to decline in the first quarter of 2019, but they do not give projections as far out as eMarketer does. But regardless, it shows that some of these more recent changes, as you mentioned before, in terms of gaming, revamping the app, finally having this Android redesign, may not expand the overall audience pie in the near future at least.
Jay, what's your reaction to this prediction from eMarketer?
Well, the biggest thing is the delta between their previous prediction and where they are now. They were expecting 6% growth this year. Now they're going to about -3%, which is a huge swing. We've been looking at the full social media space, and it's just really hard to see how any U.S. social media company is really going to experience user growth at this time. They're pretty much fully penetrated. It's really more about how you monetize those users than trying to tap into a huge market that they haven't already reached.
So you don't necessarily believe that the users could swing that much, but you also don't think users are going to grow?
I think it's going to be really hard to see user growth. If you look at Facebook and Twitter, they've really flatlined with user growth for the last couple of years and even seen a bit of a pullback because they've been kind of cleaning out their system of fake accounts. I think if you look at Snap, they've really fully penetrated the Gen Z generation, which is their wheelhouse, and they're really struggling to capture millennials, Gen Xers, and of course baby boomers. So I really don't see a ton of user growth, but I do see a lot of growth in how they monetize those users. They're still pretty low in the rankings of how much revenue they're getting per year per user. So there's a lot of growth on the revenue side.
Now, Snap did release this statement in response to eMarketer's report, saying the methodology of eMarketer's recent forecast is flawed. The report does not factor in key recent developments at Snap, such as our revamped Android app, our reference our statement in February that we do not anticipate a sequential decline in our daily active user total in the first quarter of 2019. Who do we believe? Selena?
I think broadly speaking, though, the trends do align. You're seeing Snapchat's own data show that user growth is barely growing, or, you know, there was great excitement last quarter because they didn't decline.
And eMarketer is furthermore saying that Instagram is going to pick up Snap's lost users.
And we've seen that well documented. I mean, Instagram has directly copied Snapchat's most popular feature, Stories, and we saw right after they announced that there was a pretty big drop in usage for Snapchat. And I think when I'm speaking to analysts, there seems to be a little bit of too much excitement too soon when it comes to Snapchat. I mean, the stock has nearly doubled this year, and a lot of the things they're talking about have yet to show proof that they've been successful. For instance, these in-game app features, those have barely been rolled out. The Android redesign, the Android revamp is just starting to roll out now. It won't be finished globally until later this year. So really, Snapchat isn't out of the woods yet, and we're seeing that they're really just focusing on drilling down on this core Gen Z demographic, trying to get those users to be monetized better, but they really sort of seems to have given up on this older demographic.
So, Jay, does your pessimism about growth in social networking users in general, does that extend to Instagram?
I think it does. You really have to look at every US-based social media and say this is a fully penetrated market. Now, it's a very different market if you look at Asia, where there's just not as much penetration among most of the users there. But in the US, you have full internet penetration, full smartphone penetration. Growth is going to be kind of at the speed of population growth at this point. But again, we remain really bullish on those areas like Snapchat getting into gaming, using an ad network across other apps, plugging into other apps. They're doing some really interesting things about how to really monetize those users that they do have. I just don't see them being able to move kind of up the chain into millennials and Gen Xers anytime soon.
Now, interestingly, over the last week, we've seen a number of different analysts upgrade their views on Snap, including Mark MAHANEY of RBC Capital, who was just on the show 2 days ago. He said that he believes Snap is at an inflection point, and he was very optimistic about their Android app. Take a listen.
Now, if they truly have fixed their Android problem, you're going to open up a much broader range of users. Start seeing DAU growth return. You'll see revenue growth accelerate. You'll see gross margins accelerate. Losses will come down. Stock will go higher.
So, Selena, we're focused here on the U.S. because that's what eMarketer is focused on. But, you know, many international users are Android users. What does Snap's picture look like in the international market? And from your perspective, have they really fixed their Android problem?
Well, we have yet to see. They've only recently announced that it's going to be, this new revamped version is going to be rolled out. And if they do really get it correctly, they do have a huge global market opportunity. Some regions and some places it may be a little bit too late. They have already lost those users to other competing platforms, but there are new developed markets that they can still penetrate. But in terms of all of this analyst sentiment, I think it's fair to say that 2018 was rock bottom for Snapchat. Everything that could have gone wrong did go wrong. And now analysts are starting to track some of this maturity, this growing desire to actually make money, to actually be a profitable, growing company, to hire top executives from other firms and to have a little bit less executive turnover. And those are all the positive signs that they're hanging on to.
Jay, do you think that Snap will remain relevant in the conversation? I mean, you hear about these users who have fallen off. You know, Twitter's growth has also plateaued, but you know, President Trump tweets on Twitter almost every day, and it's a huge part of the news cycle, and it keeps Twitter feeling relevant. Do you think the same thing is happening with Snap, but with a younger demographic?
I mean, it's a really good Trump point about Twitter, because I think the Trump effect on Twitter is it brought Twitter into a lot of people's lives who weren't already using the platform. It's kind of a have-to-have platform at this point. Snapchat hasn't had that moment outside of the Gen Z generation. So, you know, if there is a bull case for more users being added, that's going to be it. There's going to be something that happens, and it only happens on Snap, and you have to be on Snap to be able to see it. But that's really hard to predict, right? I mean, it's a great upside case if it happens, but we don't know if and when that'll happen.